committee. We do have some members missing for budget committees and various issues. So today we will not be working Senate Bill 116 or the bill we heard yesterday, Senate Bill 101. I do know there are amendments being drafted for both those bills, so we'll stay tuned on that. With that, we'll turn our attention and open the hearing on Senate Bill 20. Adam, can you give us a briefing?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 20 would designate a portion of United States Highway 69 as the Senator Dennis Wilson Memorial Highway. The portion of the highway would consist of U.S. Highway 69 from the junction with I-435, then south to the junction with 135th Street in Johnson County. The Secretary would install the signs once the cost requirements of KSA 68-10Com 114 were fulfilled. And with that, I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Any questions for Adam? This is a standard highway naming where they raise the 150% of the cost of the installation of the signs. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
Thank you, sir. Question from Senator Pittman.
Is the length, Adam, in line with what you'd call the average length of these type of highway namings?
There really isn't an average length, I would say. Originally the entire length of I-70 was one named highway. There really just isn't, it's just a segment. At this point, I can't really say that there's an average or a customary length. I wouldn't say it's out of the ordinary, but I can't really give it an average or some sort of usual thing that's been done.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further questions? We'll turn our attention to the proponent testimony. First up, we have Senator Molly Baumgardner. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I am Senator Molly Baumgardner, and I am here as a proponent for Senate Bill 20. Dennis Wilson, in my letter, I indicate that he truly was a giant among the many leaders in the state of Kansas. Dennis, I've known for most all of my life. He served the United States in the Air Force. He served our state as a representative and as a senator. He served his county as county treasurer, as well as serving on the water board and his community. One of the things that I noted, and the reason that I am here today, is because Dennis was the first person from Northeast Kansas to represent the Senate 37th District. And that was followed by former Governor Collier, Speaker Merrick, Kansas Corporate Commissioner Pat Apple, and now me. And you can see that he truly was a giant amongst giants. Dennis was always willing to step in very proactively to help resolve problems and issues. He didn't wait to see if it was politically expedient. If he saw a problem, he got the right people together to get that solved. And I can think of nothing better than to commemorate his service to not only Kansas, but to the United States, to have his signage there on the best highway, Highway 69. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate you leaving your committee to come over and provide testimony. Committee, you might note that in your packet, there's proponents. There's probably close to 20 additional written proponents in there. Just to let you know, I didn't list them all out on the agenda. They will be in the minutes, though. Next up, we have David Lindstrom.
Chairman, my name is Dave Lindstrom, and I have a little bit, I'm going to actually read a statement here on behalf of Dennis Wilson, if that's okay with everyone. Distinguished guests, Senator Transportation Committee, Senate staff, and guests, again, my name is Dave Lindstrom, and I'm pleased to be here with you this morning. I'm proud and I'm honored to have this opportunity to provide testimony on behalf of my good friend, former Senator Dennis Wilson. Many of you today here knew Dennis, served side by side with him right here in this beautiful Capitol building. For you, I hope my comments of supporting testimony elicit fond memories of your experience with a remarkable man. For those of you who did not know Senator Wilson, I hope to adequately convey to you his true character, as well as his love and devotion for the state of Kansas. It was my privilege to have known Dennis Wilson for more than 40 years and to be one of his 10,000 closest friends. Dennis Wilson was a man who had his priorities in order, and more importantly, he had the courage and integrity to allow those priorities to have consequences in his life. He identified his core values, and then he worked to align those with his daily behavior and those ideals. Although private about his personal life, Dennis often expressed to me his pride, his appreciation, and his sincere gratitude of God's blessings to him. At the top of that list was his marriage to Vicki, his wife of 47 years. Next was his daughter Krista and her husband Nate, who subsequently created a secret weapon that finally cracked Dennis's renowned and impenetrable sensitivity shell. And that weapon was his amazing 6-year-old grandson, Roman. Dennis Wilson deeply loved his family. Dennis was a hardworking, sincere, competitive, and self-made overachiever. He was practical, honest, professional, generous, reliable, and he was tough. He loved to laugh, and he loved to have fun. He was a straight shooter who held himself as well as others to account, including his family, his friends, and his colleagues. It has been said that accountability is the glue that ties commitment to results. Dennis Wilson's life exemplified accountability. Dennis was a businessman who began his career at a very early age. When he set out on his own, at best, he was a long shot to succeed. And that was because he did not have 3 supposed essential business measurables. He had no business degree or training, he had no business experience, and he had no money. But nevertheless, Dennis had a dream to make his life better, and just as important, he had the passion, the determination, the willingness, and the courage to make his dream of success a reality. At the extraordinary age of 17, Dennis moved out of his parents' home and went to work for the legendary and iconic automobile dealer, Cecil Van Tile. That is where Dennis was mentored by the founder of the largest privately owned automobile dealership group in the nation. That is where Dennis learned literally and figuratively to sell the car. Sell the car was Dennis's euphemism that allowed him to swallow his pride and do what it takes to get things done. And for that, it applied equally to Dennis in his politics and as well as his business. Dennis was a quick study because he had an incredible work ethic, and at the age of 29, he purchased his first of many automobile dealerships. Two short years later, at the age of 31, Dennis's Royal Chevrolet was recognized as the #1 small market Chevy dealer in the country. As you can imagine, Dennis was honored and very proud to receive his award on a national stage. He was especially appreciative to receive this recognition with the winner of the #1 market Chevrolet dealership in the country, his mentor and the man who taught him to sell the car, Cecil Van Tile. Over the years, the baton was passed and Dennis became a mentor himself. He relished the opportunity to help his friends and associates wherever and whenever the opportunity presented itself. With experience as an owner and partner in 5 dealerships, an insurance agency, and several banks, Dennis now had the essential measurables to assist, advise, develop, and even invest in other businesses. From popcorn to batteries to window washing to pro sports, it was tremendously satisfying for Dennis to take on new challenges, to contribute to the successful launch and/or turnaround of a business. And Dennis had a remarkable record of doing just that. Dennis's successes in large part were due to his association with good people, but he also was willing to take a risk, and he regularly called it as he saw it. His blessing and his curse was an intimidating reputation to be direct and perhaps even blunt in his assessments. And I can attest to those assessments applied to both friends and foes. As notable as his record of success was the fact that his business goals were accomplished when his business goals were accomplished and partnerships concluded. Dennis remained good friends with his cohorts. When I started my business, I often leaned on Dennis's wisdom, and I quickly adopted his simple and truly profound doctrine, which not only applied to business, but also political and everyday life. When Dennis was faced with an opportunity, a challenge, or decision, he had to check all three of the following boxes. Is it legal? Is it moral? Is it ethical? Dennis grew up in Kansas City, and he loved everything Chiefs. He was the leader of the Redcoaters, an exclusive club established to promote and support the Chiefs. Membership was predicated on selling 50 season tickets, and members were rewarded by traveling with the team on away games and being down on the field before home games. Dennis was inducted into the Redcoat Hall of Fame in recognition of his 20 years of service, his leadership as vice president, and by selling 50 season tickets in one day. And that was when I played, when they weren't very good. So that was an accomplishment. Dennis Wilson was a patriot, and he was a proud citizen of a nation that will not forget. Will not forget those who gave their service and made the ultimate sacrifice for their country. He was born in Missouri, but his roots ran deep in Kansas. He fondly spoke of his great-grandfather, who was one of the original settlers and founders of Dodge City, Kansas. When the veteran returned from serving 4 years in the United States Air Force, Dennis moved to the Sunflower State, where he met his bride, resumed his business career, and furthered his commitment to public service. Dennis has an amazing political resume. He began winning elections in Kansas 35 years ago, when he became a precinct committee person in Overland Park. As Senator Baumgardner said, he was elected to serve in the 29th District as a state representative, and he was elected to serve in the newly created 37th District as its first state senator. Dennis was Johnson County's last elected treasurer, where he was credited with solving the never-ending problem and troublesome delays at the Johnson County Department of Motor Vehicles. Dennis was a Kansas Director of Unclaimed Properties for the State Treasurer's Office. He was a Kansas Director of Lottery. Dennis was elected to the Johnson County Water One Board, and on 2 occasions, Dennis ran for statewide election. He was a candidate for Lieutenant Governor as Robin Jennison's running mate, and he was a candidate for Kansas State Treasurer. And although Dennis was direct and stringent in his political views, he was admired and respected by Republicans and Democrats alike because he was consistently fair, honest, and fun to be with. In closing, Dennis unabashedly was a Kansan, and he held closely the traditions of the people who live and work here in the heartland. He was so proud of the state highway system and truly believed that it was the backbone of the Kansas economy. In 2005, when Senator Wilson was tremendously honored to carry a bill which recognized and named a portion of K-10 after his friend and former governor, John Anderson, Jr. He was elated to know that travelers along the busy roadway would be forever reminded of a humble man who patriotically served our state as its governor. Never would he have imagined the irony that a mere 16 years later, in the 2021 Kansas legislative session, that his colleagues in the Senate would be taking on testimony on his behalf in Senate Bill 20. Appropriately, the proposed portion of US 69 highway denoted in Senate Bill 20 is located well within the districts that Dennis represented both in the Kansas House and the Senate. Because of his dedication and his service to our country, because of his statesmanship, his passion for and service to our state and local communities, because of his genuine devotion to his family, friends, colleagues, because of his unbridled enthusiasm and consistent adherence to the high standards of respect and diplomacy, and because it would be a fitting tribute to recognize Senator Dennis Wilson for his numerous and impactful accomplishments, I respectfully request the committee's support of Senate Bill 20. Thank you all for your service, and if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
We'll hold questions till the end of the proponents. Next up, we have Mike Brown. Welcome to the committee.
Good morning, Chairman. It's good to see you, Senators. Good to be with all of you this morning. My name is Mike Brown. I am a friend of Dennis Wilson. I am a lifelong Kansan, a businessman, and I'm a former Johnson County Commissioner. I stand before you today in support and as a proponent of Senate Bill 20. I will also say that I will deviate from former Senator Wilson and my good friend's normal, because you know if he was standing here, this would be a 35 or 40-minute oratory. I'm not going to do that. This is going to be very quick. What has already been said, especially by Mr. Lindstrom, about our friend Dennis Wilson stands for the record and in my heart forever. And he was a good friend. He was a good man. And Dave's point about sell the car, that was Dennis's moniker. And I took that with me. When I'm in my life, that I carry that with me. The sell the car thing, that was real. That really was that was what he lived by. That was his driver. I told you it wouldn't be long. I asked for approval of Senate Bill 20, recommendation from this committee, and I stand for questions at the end. Thank you for your service to our great state. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have on WebEx, Michael Armstrong. Mike, you'll need to unmute. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for the opportunity to come and support this bill to honor Dennis Wilson. As was mentioned, both from all of the proponents, that Dennis was a friend of mine. He was also my boss. And I really do cherish the opportunity to be able to speak in favor of this bill. Water One is a public entity. We operate in Northeast Johnson County. We serve a customer base of about 450,000 folks, and we operate with a 7-member elected board. And Dennis was elected to our board for a 4-year term starting in 2015. And one of the first things that we do with new board members is we hold an orientation. And one of the standard questions that we ask is, what made you run for the Water One board? And Dave mentioned that Dennis could be intimidating and blunt, pragmatic and direct. And I definitely got that feeling immediately from Dennis, because one of the first things that he said is he got elected to clean things up at Water One. So he had a healthy skepticism of government entities. And so he held us to a very high standard. And he did ask some very hard and probing questions. And I think we learned a lot from him. One of the things that Dennis was always kind of a little bit skeptical about is reserves, and whether we had too many reserves. We have a very cyclical business at Water One, where we have periods of wet years and dry years. So we do have reserves. And that was one of the things that Dennis really wanted to know about when he got elected to our board. And, you know, one of the things I did with Dennis is I learned early on, you just have to be honest with him and direct as well. And he treated you with kindness and respect. And so when he started asking questions, I just filled up a conference room table with documents so that Dennis could see everything that we were doing. And it didn't take long before Dennis realized that Water One really operated more like a business than a governmental entity. And I think that really turned the corner for him. He really became one of Water One's strongest champions. And like I said, one of my, really one of our best board members and a very good friend. So Dennis was a really ardent supporter of Water One from that point forward. Once he became confident that we were doing a good job and operating like a business, that really gained his respect. He was a strong proponent of all of our asset management programs and supported multiple programs and projects that we embarked on, and was just an outstanding board member. One of the things that always really struck me about Dennis, and one of the reasons I respected him, was that he was very clear that he never wanted to put professional staff on the spot during public meetings. If he had any kind of probing or tense questions, or if he wanted to provide critical feedback, he always handled those in a private setting. And I thought that that was really a very good, just a hallmark of a great public politician and public servant, because Dennis had a high respect for the professional staff. And even though he held us to high standards, he made sure that he didn't do that in a public setting where he would embarrass anyone. The other thing that Dennis was always very strong on was dealing with constituent issues. Dennis always took his responsibility as a public servant and representing his constituents very strongly. And he always made sure that if he got a call from a constituent, if he heard anything that was going on that he was curious about, he always ran those things to the ground to make sure that we were doing everything that we could to serve our customers and his constituents. And so just in closing, I just want to say how honored we were that Senator Wilson decided to finish his career with Water One, and we just feel proud to have been a board member, and we are proud to support this bill. Thank you.
Mike, appreciate your testimony. Committee, we have on our list Lindsay Douglas as a WebEx. Lindsay, were you wanting to testify, or was that just submitting the KDOT piece that it got on there? Excellent, thank you. Committee, note there's close to 20 pieces of testimony in your packet. Committee, are there any questions for any of the conferees? Senator Pittman.
I didn't know Dennis. Senator Wilson sounds like a great guy. I love the fact that he brought people together to achieve goals across party lines and across organizational boundaries and looking across political and business signs. So I appreciate all the testimony today and for all of you coming in. And there's a lot of testimony here that we can go through. So thanks so much.
I appreciate people taking the time to come in today. We couldn't let it go without saying that Dennis had a great sense of humor. He always liked to tell a joke at dinner. Every once in a while, he would have some really good jokes that he told a couple times before. One of my fondest memories is one of his jokes he would tell, and he would start laughing before the punchline. And everybody in the table would be laughing with him, and he would still deliver the punchline, but it was so, he gets so tickled at some of his really good ones that it was just a character. In fact, there was one joke that everybody used to ask him about, and he would, we'd ask him to tell it because we wanted to see him laughing ahead of time. So with that, I'll end my comments with Committee, further questions? Seeing none, thank you. Are there any neutrals? Any opponents? Close the hearing on Senate Bill 20. With that, we'll turn our attention to Senate Bill 26. Adam, can you give us a briefing?
Mr. Chair, are we on Senate Bill 26? Is that what we're going to now?
Yes, sir. Sorry about that.
Senate Bill 26 would designate a portion of K7 highway as the Senator Bud Burke Memorial Highway. The portion of the highway would consist of K7 from the junction with K10 and then south to the junction with Santa Fe Street in Johnson County. Again, the secretary would install the signs once the cost requirements was fulfilled. And with that, I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
And this is a bill we had last year that we didn't make it through the process due to COVID.
That is correct. There was I believe, a Senator Bud Burke Memorial Highway bill last year that got, did not make it across the line due to the session being interrupted.
Thank you, sir. Committee, further questions for Adam? Seeing none, we'll turn our attention to the proponents. First up, we have Brad Smoot. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to have to lower the mic after Dave was up here. He's a little taller than I am. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, for allowing me to speak on Senate Bill 26. Adam is correct in answering the chairman's question. You did consider this issue last year in this committee. It passed this committee unanimously and then passed the Senate floor with 39 votes. It was scheduled to be heard on the last day of the session last year. That, as you all know very well, was interrupted by COVID. So we really appreciate the opportunity to take a second bite of the apple here, hopefully, and do something to honor former Senate President Bud Burke. It was one of the privileges of my life to get to know him very well over the nearly 30 years that he worked under this dome, walking the same halls that you all walk and dealing with many of the same issues that you deal with. Those of you who knew him may remember that he spent 4 years as the majority leader, 8 years as the Senate president. He spent spent 10 years as chairman of tax committee. He was very much involved in 2 highway plans, which I think would be important to members of this committee as well as things like pari-mutuel, liquor by the drink, and all those important issues that have passed the Kansas legislature during his tenure. What some of you may not know is that he was an accomplished fighter pilot. He was a fighter pilot for the Air Force and then joined the Naval Reserves. He commanded a squadron for NATO, and he was aircraft carrier trained. That's one of the things I enjoyed talking to him about over the years. My dad was also a fighter pilot during the end of the Second World War and was trained to land those little tiny planes on those little tiny boats in that great big ocean, and I always marveled at the skill of the folks and the courage of the folks that would do that. I think it's very appropriate for lawmakers to have an opportunity to recognize someone that walked in their shoes or walked the same corridors that they walk and deal with the same kinds of issues and stresses. Nobody knows better than you all just how much it takes from your family time, your business time, your personal time to come up here and serve. And with someone like Bud who served so many years in such a meaningful way, I think this is a chance to honor him. The section of the road that is being designated or suggested to be designated as part of Highway 7 between Highway 10, which is the John Anderson Highway that was mentioned in the Dennis Wilson testimony, all the way down to the border of the city of Olathe. And it is part of the 9th senatorial district that Julia Lynn used to serve, and Senator Gossage now serves. Julia testified last year, of course, is not here today to do likewise. I took a little different tact in finding support. I just simply let people know that I was going to do something about this, and I started getting phone calls. And on the bottom of the page of my testimony, or the back, depending on how it's copied, you'll find names of current attorney generals, former attorney generals, Democrats, Republicans, several speakers of the House, and several lobbyists, some of whom are still up here prowling the halls of the Capitol along with me. But all of us had a great affection for Bud and admired his skill as a lawmaker. Be very appreciative if the committee would again favorably consider naming the section of the highway and approving Senate Bill 26. I'd be happy to stand for questions, Mr. Chairman.
Committee questions. Senator Pyle.
I just want to know, basically on both these bills, and maybe the question I have is for Lindsay, but neither one of these portions of highways are already named.
I believe that's correct. It was last year.
Okay, that's what I need to know. I just want to make sure. And can you tell me, do you know, I'm assuming the family's supportive?
Yes, and his wife Debbie was here last year, but because of COVID, I didn't bother her with it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we did get contacted by Ann. She wanted to know the status of the bill and where it was going. That was yesterday. So, committee, further questions? Seeing none, thank you. Are there any neutrals?
Thank you.
Any opponents? Committee, I'm hoping to work these bills next Tuesday. Hopefully there'll be material we can place on the consent calendar. With no further business coming before us, committee, I do intend to work the bicycle bill and 116. As I stated, there are amendments coming. When those are done from the revisers, we'll work them at the earliest opportunity. Please note your schedules. We're going to have a full day Wednesday, and then Thursday's pretty much dedicated right now to working bills. No meeting scheduled for tomorrow and none Monday, but next Wednesday and Thursday are going to be heavy. With that, we are adjourned.